started with some introductions. But yeah, and as always, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. This is a very casual chat about UNC, so don't be afraid to ask any questions. But yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm actually from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I grew up my whole life in Chapel Hill, so you could say I know a lot about UNC Chapel Hill. I'm a double major in global studies and American studies. And the first thing that I'm gonna do when quarantine is over is I'm just gonna go hug all my friends that I'm moving into a house with, and then we're all gonna go out on a beautiful picnic.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Ivana from Orangeburg, South Carolina, out of state. She, her pronouns. I'm a English and political science major. And the first thing that I'm gonna do when I get out of quarantine, I don't know, I just wanna go into Walmart and just sort of like touch everything. I feel like that's weird. Maybe I wanna put myself right back in quarantine, but I don't know, I just really wanna do it.
Hi, my name is Mary McCall. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm from a small town in eastern North Carolina. Tarboro is the exact location. I have an interdisciplinary studies major, so it's something kind of unique to UNC Chapel Hill where you can actually apply and be approved to self-create and cultivate a series of classes that becomes your major. And so I study business administration and education policy, and I have a minor in documentary film. It's actually more of a certificate that I got from Duke University. And the first thing that I'm going to do when this quarantine is over is graduate. I'm a senior, and so I want a formal celebration to my 4 years at UNC.
Awesome. And my name is Shivam. I go by Shiv. Either one is fine. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a sophomore. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, so also out of state. I'm majoring in neuroscience, and I'm minoring in social and economic justice and education. And I'll be the one moderating this chat. So hopefully you got a good glimpse into who our panelists are. I think we're all like kind of representing a lot of different communities at UNC in terms of like academics. So we all have different majors. So if any of you guys have questions during the chat, if you just joined, just drop them in the chat. That would be great. So now we're just gonna move on to like our structured questions. So our first question that we have is, how have you changed the most in college, and how has UNC influenced that change?
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer this first. I think I come from a really interesting like demographic essentially of people who've lived in Chapel Hill and then went to UNC. So I wasn't really trying to get used to like, oh, moving across the country, like being far away from my family and all those things. So I think the biggest way that UNC was able to change me is it helped me solidify like my morals and values in a way that I hadn't been able to growing up. I know that sounds really cliche, but honestly, like the resources at UNC are immeasurable and finite. And essentially, what I learned at UNC was like how to build my boundaries when it comes to my own time, how to build boundaries when it comes to balancing, especially social and academic life. But also, like you will be really influenced and really want to do like every single extracurricular that there is. Like there's so much pressure. Like I would say to be involved in things that sometimes you'll want to like, oh, let me start this whole new thing, or like, oh, let me grab some friends and start this. But I think UNC has really taught me that like, while it's so admirable to do a lot of things, if you're not putting your 100% into those things, then are you really doing what you really want to do? Like, are you starting from your heart? Are you actually trying to guide yourself in a way that's building for you, not just in terms of like resume padding, but really is it like, do you feel like you're helping yourself when you're doing these things? So I would say the main way I've changed in college is better understanding of how to set my own boundaries when it comes to my time.
I'm going to answer this question second. And so I like analogies. I'm sorry if you don't, but that's just the way that I like to speak, and hopefully it comes across more clearly. The way that UNC has changed me and the way that I have changed at UNC is best described by that whole idea of little fish, big pond. big fish, little pond. And in high school, if you're even looking at UNC, it's pretty accurate to assume that you're a pretty big fish in your pond. Top of your academic structure, top of your extracurricular structure, some sort of well-roundedness that allows you to be eligible to attend a university like UNC. And so what I find particularly interesting and something that has refined me extremely well at UNC is everyone being pulled from their respectively small ponds into this great big pond of around 17,000 undergrads who earned their spot at this university. And so coming from a pretty small town where, top 10 of your grade just means top 10 out of 160 students, which is, different than those big high schools where you've got like 1,000 students per grade. I think it's really refreshing to see that there is enough room in this world for you to be a high achiever and surrounded by high achievers. Like, you don't have to be a 1%er to be a high achiever at UNC, because pretty much everyone is. And so I think that has made me see the world with a bigger perspective, like understanding that it looks a lot of different ways to be high achievers and to be extracurricularly driven, motivated. And it also has given me a wider perspective of social boundaries. So again, growing up in a rural town in Eastern North Carolina, we would have never introduced ourselves with pronouns. It just wasn't part of the culture. But North Carolina and Chapel Hill in general has shown me the way that other people live their lives and how being accepting of that space can cultivate, more achievement in everyone in the culture. So that is the way that UNC has changed me, both perspective and encouragement that it looks a lot of different ways to be high achieving, both academically, socially, and extracurricularly.
Awesome. Thank you for those answers. So our next question, this was also very requested in the Google form, is just like describing UNC student culture and academic climate and what that looks like.
Great. So I'll pick this one up first. I'm going to just kind of bounce off of what I was just talking about with the, little fish, big pond, and talk a little bit about the work hard culture at UNC. And I think the work hard, play hard slogan is a little overused when it comes to describing a college campus, but I really do think that there's a balance that is struck on campus here, that you can't survive here if you're just going to grind. Like, there is no room for mental health improvement and a positive experience at UNC if you're only going to prioritize your academics. That's not to say that you can make some of your best friends studying in the undergraduate library at 2 a.m. in the morning. And so I think the culture at UNC and the academic climate is competitive, but it's not toxic. And I think that toxicity can stem from a lack of balance, kind of like Eleanor was saying, but it's not outright in your face in every class. There's definitely I love meme culture, and we have a really great Facebook meme for all undergrads at UNC, and I'm sure you can join at whatever time. But like, having a sense of humor about all of the things that Carolina expects from you can make it so much easier to get through a really hard day or a really hard exam. And so I've found a lot of different support emotionally and mentally and a break from the academic challenge at UNC when you need it. You can just raise your hand, go to a professor, or go to an academic advisor, go to CAPS or on-campus mentor, or what is it, on-campus psychological services. So I think that, to sum that all up, Carolina has a lot of room for fun, but everyone's going to be working and pushing towards an academic excellence in order to keep up with the pace.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. I think that there's definitely the viewpoint of UNC from the outside that it's very competitive, and I think that's true of many big universities, and that's something I was really afraid of, especially because I'm a neuroscience major, so a lot of the classes I take are really big STEM lectures, and I was really afraid of that kind of hindering my ability to learn, because I knew that, there would be a lot of competitive people in that. But I think that UNC is great in that there's a lot of different communities you can rely on. There's a lot of different support networks. I'm not going to say that there aren't competitive people. There are definitely people, who are focused on themselves and definitely are competitive. But I think in your classes, you're definitely able to find people you can lean on. You can definitely find study groups. It's not like a miserable experience. I think while UNC is big, you can definitely find ways to make it smaller so it doesn't feel as overwhelming. And like, I'm not gonna lie and say that like UNC isn't hard. I think we can all definitely like sit here and talk about how difficult the academics are, but I think like they're very manageable with, you know, like good time management skills. And there's definitely a lot of resources that you can use to help you with that. When I first came to college, I think I had relied on a lot of the study skills from high school, and I slowly realized that that just like wasn't going to cut it. And at first I felt really lost because obviously UNC is really big and I didn't really know like where to start and like who to seek help for, like in terms of studying. But we have a really great learning and writing center, and I was kind of afraid to use that as a resource at first, but honestly they've helped me a lot in terms of my study skills. And I think that just shows that like you kind of have to seek those resources at UNC, and they do exist, and like academics are definitely manageable regardless of what your major is. So hopefully that gave you guys a better idea of like the academic side. So our next question is probably one of my favorite questions that I feel like really honestly isn't focused on a lot, and a lot of people make this mistake. But basically it's, what do you recommend for choosing courses for the first semester at UNC? Should you focus on like general requirements or taking like a wide range of classes, or should you just go right into the important classes for your major? Please do not just take a bunch of classes for your major your freshman year. Definitely not recommended. Um, my first semester at UNC, I didn't take a single class that was for my major. Um, and I honestly, that was the best decision I made. Don't be afraid about like falling behind in terms of classes for your major. You have 4 years to take those classes. And I think like don't limit yourself to the opportunities that exist in terms of classes at UNC. You know, you might come into UNC thinking that you have a certain major. And honestly, this is for any college. You will go into college thinking you want to major in one thing, but if you don't take other classes, you won't really know for sure if that major's for you or if other classes or majors are maybe for you. My first semester, I took a sociology class, a women and gender studies class, an English class. None of those things I'm majoring in now, but honestly, it gave me a really good perspective into the different opportunities that exist and like, you know, what I might be interested in terms of my minors. And I think it's just good to like start off easier when you come in. That way you're not overwhelming yourself. And I think that like that just really helped me adjust to college in general, is like just starting off with like a wide range of classes, because I knew if I had taken classes for my major now, I wouldn't have had time to explore extracurriculars. I wouldn't have had time to meet new people. And I think that's something that's really not emphasized when people first go into college. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll hop on to this one as well. I think that in terms of some majors at UNC, there can be quite a few requirements, especially when it comes to some STEM, like some STEM majors. Definitely don't hunker down into that major by itself and not take any other classes. But I do think that if you're feeling like very, very sure, you've already taken a bunch of classes in high school, you know that this is what you want to do, maybe take one or two. But I think I completely agree with Shiv when he says it's good to explore. I know with me, you know, I applied to UNC as a chemistry major, and look at me now, nowhere near that. I ended up taking a life writing class my freshman year, had an amazing professor who has since retired. It's okay, I'm not hurt. But I took that class with her. She was absolutely amazing, and now that's what I'm majoring in, right? Like I'm a creative writing, I have a creative writing concentration in the English degree. So I think it's really important to explore because you never know what you're going to be interested in. And also, I think one of the things that I love the most about UNC are probably the professors. There's so many amazing people that you won't get the chance to meet if you only limit yourself to one area of study. And I met professors in my freshman year that I still work with now, that I get to do research with, that I get to have internships with. So I think it's really good to explore and get a sense, because at the end of the day, people change. You're going to change while you're here. No matter, anytime that you go through a big shift in life, the person that you're going to be after you come out of that shift is completely different from who you were coming in. And that means that your interests are probably going to change as well. And UNC has such a wide breadth of areas that you can study and that you can be impactful in. I think it's really important to explore that, because otherwise you do yourself a disservice and you potentially miss out on something that could have been really great for you later on.
Thanks for that, Ivana. All right, so our next question is going to be a very honest question that I feel like a lot of people don't really get when they go on like college tours, because it's just not really asked a lot. But I think it's important to kind of get like the whole perspective, like the good and the bad. So this question just is like, what do you dislike the most about UNC and how can it improve?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of people have heard about the silent exam protests on our campus. It's been a pretty big topic, and I think it would be a mistake for us not to sort of address it here. And especially as like a Black woman, I think that it's very important for me to talk about it. I think this is something that shows up in a lot of major college campuses across the US, across the world. You're going to run into prejudice, you're going to run into racism no matter where you are. And I think that the professors and the students, and I think that there are also some administrators who have really done their part in changing UNC culture to make sure that it's inclusive and to make sure that people feel welcome. But I think that sometimes that response does leave a little bit to be desired. And I think going forward, I would like to see more administrators, and I think even some foundational offices sort of move into more training for people in terms of how do we address bias, how do we deal with these situations when they come onto our campus, and how are the decisions that we're making impacting the students that are there. Because I think especially for people of color, that can be a really major thing in where you decide to go. And I know that if I had been applying to UNC after everything with silent exam happened, I definitely probably would have reconsidered my decision to go. Now I'm happy where I am. I think that I have a great network of people who are very supportive, who are also very accepting and are very kind. And I think I wish that sometimes administration could catch on to that.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that. I think like Ivana was saying, you're going to come across a lot of these issues at a lot of big universities, but I think at UNC, one thing that I wish there was more of was kind of more of a connection between the administration and students. I think for me, I'm very involved with a lot of social justice things on campus, and I found it very difficult to get through with the administration. But I think that's something that you would find at a lot of big universities, but I think it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I think it's something that's not really thought about a lot for some people, but I think the administration sometimes lacks communication with its students, especially those who identify as part of marginalized communities. And I think that's something that a lot of students have been trying to push for. But that being said, I think a lot of those issues are being addressed by student activists on campus, which is something I do really love about UNC, is that while there are a lot of things that are wrong with the administration, I think the students who are really passionate about these issues really stand out in terms of what they believe in. And I think that's something that I really love, is that, a lot of the progress that our school has made with a lot of these issues have been made possible by the students who are super passionate about it. And I think that's something that I've definitely seen throughout a lot of these issues. And I think something else, like a little more minor, that I don't like, if you are coming to UNC next year, definitely just like when you go to certain buildings on campus, do not be surprised if there's nowhere to sit. Like, I'm just going to be honest, like if there's a library or there is the dining hall, like if you're walking around for 10 minutes and there's nowhere to sit, like don't be surprised by that. Like that's just a fact. And like everyone knows it when they come here, that it's a big school, and you're going to have certain times where there's just a lot of people. like especially on the quad during the day, I'm like, oh God, like this school is ginormous. But that being said, I think that is definitely like something you get used to. Honestly, something you might end up loving one day, but sometimes it does get very annoying when you're trying to study and literally there's nowhere to sit. But that only happens when like finals come around and stuff. But yeah. Okay, so our next question is kind of shifting a little more toward the positive side of things and like reflective side of things. So what has been your most memorable experience at UNC?
All right, I'm going to take this question, but I want to add on something to that last question. When you go on like a tour of the UNC that's like an official tour, the tour guides aren't allowed to talk about Silent Sam or student activism at all. Like, it's completely forbidden from their script that they're allowed to make. And so if you ask that question during a tour, like, what do you not like about UNC? The only option they're really given is to say that they don't like the parking options at UNC. So it's just something to keep in mind that, like, thank you, Ivana and Shiv, for giving honest experiences here, because we're not taking that censorship. No, we're not. Okay, so my most memorable experience at UNC has to be this one night where I'm involved with a campus committee called Carolina Kickoff. And so we offer a 3-day camp before school starts that essentially is all about like building community, opening yourself up to like UNC as a community and trying to understand like what does being a part of UNC really mean. And so all the counselors, we planned this 3-day camp, and all the guy counselors do this really elaborate 10-minute dance called Divergence to every single like top 10 pop song you could ever imagine. It's the most powerful thing ever. Like it is so funny. Mary McCall knows what I'm talking about. But we have a dance marathon that happens annually, and they got to perform at dance marathon. So we ran like essentially like we had like a little like get together at someone's house before like they're supposed to go on. And then I remember it was like, oh my God, we only have 20 minutes to get there before they get on. And so I just remember everyone just like, this, by the way, like it happens in a gym, and we were in a house that was like a mile away. And we just like ran. Like we ran for Fetzer Gym. Like I never had just like that much like, it was just pure fun, like running there. And then when we get there, they're like, sorry, like, since you're a visitor, you can only stay in this caged area. So we couldn't even roam around the dance marathon. And the gym is like, if this is the gym, this is the stage, and this is where the cage was. I'm saying cage, but it was like just a barrier that like they monitored. And so we were like, no, we're not getting in that cage. And so we ran around, like snuck around dance marathon to get up to the stage and like be front and center. And I think it's my most memorable experience because I'm usually someone that like needs a plan. Like I feel a lot less.
I think it may have I think Eleanor just got kicked off the call for a second. So Mary McCall, if you want to pick up this question while Eleanor comes back into the call, that would be great.
Okay, I think she's back in. Eleanor, there's 2 of you now. You're muted.
Oh, sorry, Eleanor, you can go ahead and finish now. I think you got kicked off for a second.
She's no longer a co-host, I think.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't think
Hold
she can
on.
unmute herself.
Okay, there we go. It should work now.
Oh my God, amazing.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
Technical difficulties, it's all good.
Right. But just to finish my story, I'm usually someone who really needs like a plan and to just like to feel safe and just like feel secure. But that night there was no plan. And it was just like pure unadulterated fun with my friends. And that's why it's my most memorable experience at UNC, because it taught me to just like get out of my comfort zone and not be afraid to have fun.
So my experience or most memorable memory from UNC is a little more academic, but I think still just as fun in a different way. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that transition from underclassmen to upperclassmen as something to really look forward to in your experience at UNC, whether you pick 3 or 4 years to finish your degree. Most people pick 4, but just being inclusive, people who want to finish a little early. I took a gap semester my junior year fall, and so I was completely off campus, working in DC with a charter school. Anyway, so I come back in the spring, and I become a teaching assistant for an honors freshman year seminar. And so it was my first position, actually my first semester being on campus as a junior, but secondly, first time having like a leadership role where I was leading a class or helping a professor lead a class. Actually, Shiv was one of my students. And the class was all about education policy and applied in entrepreneurship, which is the major that I created for myself, which is pretty great and aligned. And so being a teaching assistant and switching between the role of being a student and seeing behind like the curtain of administration and academics at UNC was really eye-opening for me. And so when I was sitting in class as a student and then running to across campus to be a TA, there was this mental switch from going from like asking, how can this class fit my needs, to how can I help this professor teach what he wants these students to learn? And so I got to take that mindset with me of being a TA into senior year fall, as I was the teaching assistant for the 400-person version of the 20-person class I TA'd in the spring. And into this spring, now I'm not a TA anymore, but having that idea that education is something to like really delight in, and working with your professors and not against them, trying to decide how you can get the most points for the best grade, and rather have this mind shift of like, what can I learn from this really intelligent, hardworking individual who has committed their life to giving me knowledge? And so being a TA was something that I really enjoyed, but also kind of made my friends would joke that everywhere my students would say like, oh my gosh, you're my TA, whether it was like in a bar or in a restaurant or in class or walking to campus. And so I made my private Snapchat story, yes, I'm your TA, just because it became so frequent. I would have to like tell my friends funny stories of when it would happen all over the place. So I say that story about me being a teaching assistant to encourage y'all going into Carolina to seek out those leadership roles where you have that mental switch, going from an underclassman just absorbing everything to an upperclassman kind of giving back to the UNC community. And so when I left my teaching assistant position last spring with Shiv's class, me and my co-TA wrote a little letter that was just like, we believe y'all are going to be the changers at UNC that's going to make this place better than the place you found. And so whether it's being a research assistant or a residence hall advisor or being a teaching assistant, there are so many places at Carolina where you can have that leadership role and make a difference in younger students' lives. And having that switch and coming into your responsibility has been one of the most memorable experiences I had, because you're coming as a 17 or an 18-year-old with 22, 23-year-olds kind of dominating the campus. It's really kind of terrifying, but it's really great because within 4 years, you become that really small fish to a bigger fish that can help the small fish feel more comfortable.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So like our last like structured question, like longer questions that we have is kind of about like imposter syndrome. So it's just like discuss some of your insecurities as an incoming freshman joining such a selective class. I can go ahead and start answering this one. I think this is something that's not really addressed a lot at a lot of like higher ranked public universities or just like higher ranked colleges in general, is the concept of imposter syndrome. I think when I first came to UNC, I was definitely very overwhelmed because there were so many people, and obviously everyone who got in was very accomplished and smart. And I think like everyone goes through very big lecture classes where there is a lot of intelligent people. And I definitely struggled with, knowing or wondering like, is UNC the right place for me? Am I smart enough to go here? I definitely question my abilities a lot of the time. And I think something that I realized is it's definitely a process. Wherever you go to college, it's not going to be easy. Not just UNC, college in general is not easy. It definitely takes time to adjust. I think the biggest thing that helped me realize that I definitely belonged at UNC was not necessarily through my academics, but through the different communities that I found. I found myself that the more involved I got in things that I cared about, the more I felt supported by other people at UNC. And I think that honestly translated over to my academics. Um, I felt like, okay, so what? I did not do well on this one exam, but I definitely had, at the end of the day, I had a really great group of friends that I could rely on. And I think that definitely helped me with kind of like imposter syndrome and like wondering if I belong here. Another thing is like, college is a lot different from high school. I know a lot of people say it, but you really don't realize it until you're in college. And I think that like you have to realize that like it's okay if you're not doing well in one class. One class is not going to make or break your career or your grades. At the end of the day, like college, there's going to be a lot of highs and lows. And I think like the more you find your community and the more you have those like stretch experiences, the more you'll feel a sense of belonging at UNC. And I think that's what's helped me kind of like figure out if I really do belong here or not.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak on this question a little bit as well. So sorry if there's anything in the background. I have like 5 people in my house right now. But one of the things that I really want to get back to is actually a point that Mary made about leadership roles. And I think going for those positions in which you are able to sort of help other people rather than just looking at what you're going to get out of something. And I think that that was something that I struggled a little bit with coming in terms of approaching professors. I have been in situations where I had teachers who had office hours, and I went to a high school with a really weird structure. But when it came to going to UNC and looking for those opportunities to get involved with research or to get internships, I sometimes felt a little hesitant about approaching administrators or teachers because I always thought, well, maybe I'm not the right person for that role. Maybe I don't have the skills for it. Maybe, I don't want to get in there and then end up potentially disappointing this teacher who I really like and respect. And one thing that I sort of had to realize was you have to give your best in everything. You have to put yourself out there. If you don't advocate for yourself, if you don't place yourself in situations that are going to be stretch experiences, that are going to push you to be better and to learn more things, you're never going to be able to achieve anything. And I think that that's something that it's such an important lesson to learn in any university experience. Put yourself out there. You might not do as well as you want to do. You might not, it might not always be your best work. You might be a little overwhelmed sometimes. You might be confused or lost. But recognize that there are so many people willing to help you and willing to guide you through that. But no one can give you help if you don't ask for it. And I think that that was a major lesson that I had to learn, like, don't be afraid. You got here. People obviously saw something in you, and that's why you're in the position that you're in. And just, you got to go for it. That's probably my biggest thing.
Thanks, Ivana, for that answer. All right, so now we're gonna move into like from the like longer structured questions to kind of rapid fire questions, shorter questions that a lot of you asked. So these are just like a lot of random questions that people have about UNC and college in general that we're all going to answer. So the first question is, what's your favorite first year class that you took? I can go ahead and start this one. Mine was actually the class that I took where Mary McCall was my TA. It was definitely my favorite class. Like she said, it was a first year seminar that had to do with education and entrepreneurship. I'm a neuroscience major, so to take a class about education and entrepreneurship did not seem like something that I would be interested in. It was completely unrelated to any of the other classes I had taken, but I knew that I wanted to try something new. And honestly, it was one of the best classes I've taken in general at UNC. It opened my eyes up to a lot of education inequalities that exist. I actually switched my minor to education, and I'm doing some research that's related to education. And I don't think that would have ever happened if I hadn't, explored other options and taken different classes that aren't related to my major. And I highly recommend taking first year seminars, whether they're honors or not. They're really cool classes that like explore different topics that you wouldn't be able to explore if you hadn't taken those classes.
So I'm going to kind of echo Shiv, and I just think that first year seminars really prioritize first year classes really prioritize first year seminars. They're a really unique thing that UNC does, and they're not required, but they can give you lots of gen eds. I mean, I was still taking gen eds this semester, so you should definitely knock those out early, and you can explore other options that you might not otherwise study. Oh, my first year seminar was McDonaldization of society in the 21st century. Like, those are a lot of buzzwords, but we read this really interesting book on how like McDonald's has shaped our culture, and that professor we still keep up with each other. So really fun.
Yeah, my favorite class was definitely the life writing class that I mentioned a little earlier. Completely changed my life, made me recognize the value of telling a story, and I think of being vulnerable in your writing. Probably also one of like my best moments at this university was I was like reading something in class that I had written, and I looked up and a girl was crying, and I was about to like fall out because it made me realize, everyone has a story to tell, and words can have an impact on people even if you never would have expected them to. So definitely hands down the best class I've ever taken with one of the best professors that I've ever had at Carolina.
So my favorite first year class was also a first year seminar. I took Sociology 64, which was about educational inequality then and now. And I remember the first day of class, I got there early, and I noticed the door was locked and the lights were turned off. And like the way I was taught to like think, I was like, oh, I can't enter the classroom. And so then all my other classmates showed up, and because I didn't open the door, they also didn't open the door. And so we were all standing outside, our whole entire class was standing outside this one room, and our professor shows up. Her name's Dr. Tyson, and she looks at us, walks up to the door, and opens it. And I just thought the door was locked because I assumed it was. And then we all sat down, and she was like, okay, who got here first? And I was like, I did. And she was like, well, why didn't you come in? And I was like, I don't know, I just assumed. And she was like, well, why did you assume? And I was like, I don't know, I was taught to like not come into the classroom if the door is closed and the lights are off. And she was like, well, I don't want you thinking like that in my class, because the whole class is about like breaking down like systematic assumptions about education, and especially like the divide between Black and white students. And I love that woman. She's my best friend. So first year seminars also give a great opportunity to create a really close bond with professors. It not only gives you an opportunity, and it also gives you an opportunity to just like really focus in on a certain topic. And now I'm incredibly passionate about school segregation.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a few more minutes, so we'll try to get through as many of these as possible, but I definitely want to respect the 15 minutes at the end for y'all to ask any questions that you want. So the next question is, what's your favorite place to study? If you're coming to UNC next year, this is a secret that I only let certain people know in terms of study spots. There is a 24-hour Starbucks in the UNC hospital. It is 2 stories. You can go whenever you want. Not a lot of people know about it. Maybe I'll see you there next year, but honestly, a much better alternative compared to the library because caffeine, not a lot of people. You can go there whenever you want. I know it's like kind of weird that it's in the hospital, but like it's its own place. So like you're not like, it doesn't feel like you're in the hospital, but yeah.
Shiv, I'm hurt you never shared that with me, but it's okay. I'm not upset. There's a shop on Franklin that I really love. It's a tea shop called Yaya Tea. The Wi-Fi isn't very good, but it's always so empty, and I just love it. I love it so much.
I personally love Davis Library. Some days I'm feeling the first floor, I'm feeling the chaos of just everyone being there. And sometimes I'm feeling the 8th floor that has like amazing furniture in it. Please utilize the libraries. They're an amazing resource. We have 14 of them.
And we miss them. My favorite is the basement of my sorority. So if anyone has any questions about Greek life, I can speak to that. I guess it's like not on campus, but I really like studying there.
All right, so I'm gonna skip a couple questions in the rapid fire and get to one that was requested a lot in the Google form. How are the dorms at UNC, and are there any recommendations? Yeah, I can just start this one off. I would say for the most part, the dorms are a hit or miss, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, they're all like luxurious and amazing. That's not true. Like, there's some that definitely have like worse reputation than others. I would say try to pick a dorm based on like the vibe of living that you want. So if you're looking for like a very like social atmosphere and you want to meet a ton of new people all the time and you like kind of like the loud environments, I would say look at like the 8-person suite dorms. So like Hojo, E-House, Craig, a lot of those like I think are good for people who are interested in meeting a lot of people. And I have a lot of friends that live there who had really good experiences. But also, I'm personally a fan of the 4-person suites. I lived in Horton my freshman year, and I really, really loved it. I thought it was super clean, really like peaceful and quiet, but like still a good amount of social interaction. Yeah, I really liked it. I would say most freshmen live on South Campus. And I definitely recommend living on South Campus. You can live on North Campus, which is closer to all of your classes. But I think if you want like that like freshman experience, I think South Campus is definitely like a pretty good place to stay in terms of like location. If anyone else has something to add on to that.
I can add a quick word about the private dorms. Granville, it again is like very stereotypical for Greek life people to enter into. But if you want to like talk or have any questions about what it looks like to live, it's off campus technically, but it's right beside campus. And that's where I lived, and it's a 2x2 with a shared bathroom, and I really liked it.
I'll add one thing about pricing. So first year, you have to live in the dorms. And the rent, like if you wanted to divide like how much housing is by the amount of months that you live there, it costs around like $750 a month to live in a dorm. And so after your first year, when you're allowed to live off campus, I'm able to save a lot of money because I found a house to live in that where my rent is a lot cheaper. So if you're also concerned about like financial things, off campus is probably your best bet if you're trying to save money and living.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something really important that not a lot of people know about too. Okay, so we have like 15 minutes left. I definitely want to open it up to anyone else if they have questions. I made it so you can unmute yourself. So if you feel comfortable talking out loud, feel free to unmute yourself and ask that question out loud. Or an alternative is to just say it in the chat or like message one of us privately. We definitely want to take this last chunk of time for y'all and any like specific questions you have. And if not, we have like other questions we didn't get to that we can definitely do in the last like 15 minutes. But I did get one question. Someone said, so I'm dual enrolled at a community college and I will be graduating high school with an associate's degree. I still have no clue what I want to major in, so I definitely want to keep exploring. My question is, am I still able to take a first year seminar? Yes, definitely. Any first year can take a first year seminar. Highly recommend it, regardless of whether you know your major or not. Even if you have all of your gen eds done, I would still recommend taking it. And if you don't have your gen eds done, they're a really great way to get certain gen eds out of the way. I know a lot of people complain about the amount of gen eds we have to get done, but if you're gonna like try to get them out of the way, at least take interesting classes that will allow you to get those out of the way. So yes, you can definitely take that regardless of like where you are in your credit hours. Okay, any other questions? You can just say them at any time. If not, we can just keep going with the questions that we missed. I can keep pulling them from the Google form, but just drop them in the chat or privately message me. That's all right. Okay, so the next like rapid fire question we didn't get to was, what's your biggest regret in college so far? Okay, Ivana, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah, I definitely wish that I would have put myself out there a little bit more socially my first year. I I think I present myself as very extroverted, but it can take me a really long time to I think open up. And so I sometimes regret that I hadn't put myself out there a little bit more my first year, because I think I would have. I have like my crew, I have my group now, but I definitely think I could have had a lot more connections if I had just done that a little earlier than the beginning of my sophomore year. So I think that would probably be my biggest advice, just go for it.
My biggest regret in college so far, that's tough. I maybe would have prioritized studying abroad. I grew up with pretty lucky to travel abroad often, and so I didn't really prioritize that. But as I'm graduating, I took a gap semester instead of studying abroad. So that was really valuable for me. But I think there was definitely room for me to study abroad in the summer, or maybe just take a second semester off of campus. Now that it's quarantine and you can't travel anywhere, it's a little bit more heightened that you wish you could go somewhere else. But UNC has a lot of great traveling abroad programs, so look into that for sure.
I think my biggest regret comes from something. It comes from like the imposter syndrome that Shiv was talking about earlier, and kind of like when you see all these opportunities, like I just constantly told myself like, oh, that's not right for you and whatnot. And I tried to like plan out my whole 4 years of college with like, what classes am I going to take? What am I going to be involved in? And like, to be completely honest, you can't plan ahead. Things just happen. So kind of plan for like safety. Like, don't be afraid to apply to multiple things. Because maybe you won't get any of them, but maybe you'll get all of them. So don't be afraid to be like, oh, sorry, I already got this thing. I think I used to try to be like, I want this one thing and I'm just going for it. But it would have been a lot smarter for me to just, like what Ivana said, just put myself out there, really try to like foster those connections and not try to get caught up in my head with like this ultimate picture of what I have to be. Because let me tell you, we're all going different paths in life, and all you have to do is just trust yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think my biggest regret, I think I really wish my freshman year, and even now something I'm still working on, is prioritizing self-care. I think that I think this happens at a lot of universities, that there's this culture of kind of like pushing yourself to the max, doing as much as you can, and staying involved until every hour of your day is filled with something. I definitely did that a lot my freshman year. I thought it was smart to take 18 credit hours my second semester, do as many clubs as I can. And I really, really regret that, because I think it definitely hindered my ability to care for myself. And I think that's something that isn't really prioritized a lot with college students. So I wish like I had come into college, doing more things for myself, whether that was hanging out with friends or, just like setting aside time for myself at the end of the day. I think would be something I really wish I could do more of my freshman year. Okay, so I got a question. What made you choose UNC? Okay, this is a really, really great question. I can start this one off, and then whoever wants to piggyback off of it. Um, I think when I was thinking about where I wanted to go to college, I wanted to go to a place where there are a lot of opportunities and opportunities for me to explore different things. A lot of the other schools I had gotten to were very specialized in certain programs, but what I liked about UNC was that I had the ability to kind of switch around what I was interested in, and I wasn't really pressured to do one thing. UNC is known for a lot of really great things. Like, I know a lot of other schools, they're known like just for like their business program or their business school. But I think UNC like has so many different opportunities in terms of like academics and extracurriculars. And I wanted to go to a school where I was able to choose what I wanted to do without feeling the pressure of doing one thing, if that makes sense. And I also really wanted to go to a place where I was able to find kind of like my niche in my community. And I liked that while UNC was a big school, they had smaller communities I could be a part of. And then I think the last thing I really wanted a focus on was just like social justice and community service in general. I knew I wanted to go to a school where that was like a focus in a lot of places. And I was really drawn to that at UNC, that there were so many opportunities for that.
Do you care if I jump in? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ma'am Call.
Okay, I was going to switch the topic really quickly. Okay. I was going to jump into a different question. Is that fine, Shiv? I was going to talk about the honors classes because I think that it's like it's a pretty self-selective group of people that are here. And so I wanted to just like speak really quickly to the honors program. I followed all 4 years of it, and I just finished my last paper in order to graduate from the honors college. And not all of my friends who were initially invited into the honors college finished it. There are some perks, like little things, study breaks with coffee and snacks, dinners with professors with 12 people, and then the obvious, which is smaller classes. And I think that the classes aren't that much harder. You might have a little bit more work to do, but when it comes to content understanding, it's not going to be learning, 10 times the amount of information that the original class is learning. I took Econ 101, which is like a basic class requirement for most, businessy economics majors. And I took it in the honors section, and it was just a smaller group. I got to know my classmates way better, and you leave feeling a little bit more like a cohort and less like a 150-person lecture hall just trying to get through the day. So that's like what I would speak to the honors college, is it creates a bit of community within your classes, but it's not going to like make or break your academic career in terms of difficulty. It just might add a little bit more community.
I also have something to add to Mary McCall's point. I'm doing my honors thesis this year. I know a bunch of people who have done it in the past, and that's an option that you can take even if you're not in the honors college. You just sort of have to have someone willing to mentor you, and you have a GPA requirement. But that's a really, really cool way of exploring a topic of study under the mentorship of someone else. And especially when it comes to the creative writing programs and the honors thesis that you can do at UNC, they're very selective, very rigorous, but they're also a really great experience to really form a cohort with a very small group of people. And just the creative writing program at UNC is magnificent. So I highly recommend doing that if you have any interest in writing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was another question I got a lot on the Google form as well about like honors classes. So thank you for answering that. So another question I got was, how easy is it to participate in research as an undergraduate? I can talk about that a little bit. I'm pretty involved with research. So I've been working on a neuroscience research project for the past 2 years with the UNC School of Medicine. So if you have any questions about that after this, definitely let me know. But I wouldn't say it's easy to get involved, but it's easy to find opportunities. It's not like you can just sign up for something and get involved right away, but there are a lot of professors that are looking for undergraduates to assist them in research, and that doesn't only go for STEM majors. There's research across every single discipline at UNC. I would say the easiest way to learn more about research is to go to the Office of Undergraduate Research website. They have an entire database of research opportunities where you can filter it out based on your major. So like if you're majoring in like environmental science, you can put that in and it'll come up with an entire list of professors that are looking for undergraduates to assist them with their projects. I would say that's the best place to start, but if you have like further questions about research, definitely let me know after and I can talk to you about that. Okay, so we
also,
have,
sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to say also, I'm in the humanities field and I can talk about research as well. So also contact me if you have any questions.
All right, so we have like 2 more minutes. This is like not your last chance to ask any questions, but I just want to leave the last couple of minutes if anyone has to go to ask any like last questions that they have. I know a few of us had said that we'd be willing to stay after the 1 hour mark, so we're happy to answer any further questions you have. If you feel like you want to stay after the hour mark, that is completely up to you, but you don't have to do that. And yeah, also we can drop our emails, the panelists, if you want. We can ask any questions outside of this. But we do want to respect everyone's time. If you joined late, or if you just like want this as a resource, this has been recorded and will be posted onto the CollegeSide Chat YouTube. So just search CollegeSide Chats into YouTube probably in the next like week or two, and this video will pop up, and it'll be a really good resource for anyone, or if you have like any other friends that are still high schoolers and want to learn about UNC, this should be a good resource. But I will be sticking around, so feel free to ask any more questions. But if not, thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you got a good insight into what life is like at UNC. This is just like a few of us and our experiences, so we don't represent every single person at UNC. We just wanted to give some more perspective, and we aren't part of the admissions office either. So this is just like an honest perspective. And thank you all so much. And thank you to the other panelists who joined. They took time out of their day to come. And I hope you all enjoy this. And like I said, I will be staying. So feel free to privately message me, Eleanor, or Ivana, if you have any questions.
Okay, I know Mary McCall just left, but someone just asked a question about interdisciplinary studies.
Oh.
So sorry.
I can try to answer it. I know a lot of people that have majored in it, and I thought about it at some point of doing that. I can try to answer it. What was it in the chat, or like what was the specific question? Oh, would you guys mind talking a little bit more about the Okay, so I think from what I've heard, the process of doing an interdisciplinary studies major is you kind of just like, you fill out like a proposal, and I think you send it to like the College of Arts and Sciences. There's definitely more information that I am not giving you that's online, but from what I know is like, you can essentially create your whole major if you kind of come up with the proposal on your own. I have a couple friends that are doing an interdisciplinary major in the social determinants of health. So they kind of pull together classes from like the anthropology and sociology department. So I think that's like the process of it, is like, instead of just taking classes in one department, you're pulling together a lot of different disciplines and making it into one major. And I'm pretty sure you have to find like a faculty advisor to help you with that. But I would say most people probably do that like their sophomore year. I would say like most people don't really figure that out their freshman year. But I would say, I think, did Mary McCall? Yeah, Mary McCall left her email, so she'd definitely be a better person to talk about this, because I know none of us are majoring in interdisciplinary studies, but yeah. Okay, any favorite clubs that you were in? Fun student organizations?
Can I do a Shiv? Okay. You have to join the Campus Y. Me and Shiv are on their executive board. You might hear the Campus Y and be like, YMCA. Well, because it used to be a YMCA on campus. But essentially, the Y is the Center for Social Justice and Social Innovation on campus. There's 30 plus different committees that all focus on different social issues. Carolina Kickoff, the one that I mentioned earlier, is one of those committees. And so Shiv and I on the exec board kind of help assist those committees, help assist the Campus Y in organizing social justice and activist efforts on campus. I'm also involved in CUBE, which is their social innovation incubator, which is just a fancy way to say that when people have an idea for social venture and they need funding for it and want to build a cohort and essentially have essentially a program to go through to help them build their social venture, me and my boss help choose them, help craft the programming and the pedagogy that they use to help develop their social venture. I think it's an amazing resource. It's an amazing building. They also have a coffee shop there. That's a nonprofit student-run coffee shop, and it's amazing. And they have these cute stickers. I highly recommend the Campus Y.
Thank you. Yeah.
David, is there anything like specifically that you're interested in? Because then if you have specific interests, I can maybe give you like a couple recommendations based on that. If not, yes, the
Well,
key.
like multicultural, probably. Like I know, and like religious, I'm Christian, so probably like a faith-based one. And I've been looking into several ones, but I'm just like trying to see what I should do because like I think you made a point last time about having a balance between like finding like getting involved with so much stuff, and I see like I
Mhm.
want to pick the stuff that like I really want to do and not like you know stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I would say just like in general, Fall Fest, which happens at the beginning of the semester, is definitely the best place to start in terms of just seeing like everything that's available. Fall Fest is basically just like the student organizations fair that we have every year, where every single student club and organization has like a booth set up. So don't feel like you have to like create a list now of clubs that you should get involved with. I would say like you can wait until you come to UNC, get a feel for like different things that exist, and then at Fall Fest, like just like sign up for things that you're interested in. And I also just want to say that like there's no harm in trying something out and then quitting it. um Honestly, that's something that's not really pushed a lot, like trying new things and just not doing it again. Like there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people feel like you have to start with something freshman year and you have to become the president of that and be in that club for your entire 4 years. That's not the case. I have been in so many random clubs, went to one meeting and been like, no, this is so weird, I'm not doing it again. I was on a competitive dance team for a semester. It was fun, but just too much time. Didn't do it again. Great experience, but you know, there's no harm in trying that for one semester. And that's something that like not a lot of people talk about, is like, it's okay to quit things. Like it's really not that deep. Like at the end of the day, you're going to college for school. You're not going to get involved in a 500 different things and stick with those. But yeah, Ivana, I don't know if you have anything else to add to the club or organization talk.
Um, I mean, I think that you hit on a lot with Fall Fest. Also, fraternities are something also to look at if you're looking for faith-based organizations. I know that a lot of people sort of push them as purely like social, but there are also quite a few fraternities that are academic-based, faith-based. So you can look at those as well later on. I know that sometimes getting into those may be a little bit more difficult just because the information may not be as readily available, but there are quite a few people who can give you information on that as well. And just sort of retweet on what Shiv said about quitting. It's okay. You know, I'm still getting emails from clubs that I haven't been since the first week of my first year here. So, you know, just there are so many opportunities at Fall Fest. And also, a lot of times you can find out more information from professors, surprisingly, who can get you involved in a lot of different things as well. So I think my advice throughout this entire call probably has just been like, find your professors and just stick with them for your years there.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good advice to just like, you know, actually talk to your professors. Okay, I'm trying to see. There's a lot in this chat. Any advice for work study and extracurricular engagement? Okay, so I think we kind of covered the extracurricular engagement. Um, I don't know if anyone, Ivana or Eleanor, if you've had experience with work study. If you did, then definitely better if one of you talk about it, but I can just talk about like what I know from other people. I don't know if either of you have something. So work study, I think that if you search like work study UNC, I know a lot of people that have done work study, and there's a website where it'll give you like all of the opportunities at the beginning of like the fall semester. For work study, I would say, from what I've heard is like, don't limit yourself to what you think is available. I know a lot of people think that work study kind of only exists like working at like a library or one of like the student stores, but there's so many opportunities for work study. If research is something you're interested in, like work study and research can actually be paired. So the lab that I actually work in, they have the option for any undergraduate that works there to combine work study and actually get paid for what you do. So I would say like just keep your eyes out for like different opportunities. I would say that like there's ways to combine work study that a lot of people don't know about, like research. I don't know if that answers your question fully, Brenda, but if you have like any further questions about that, definitely let us know, or there's a lot of resources online as well. But yeah.
Yeah, I can also speak very briefly on this as well. Shiv mentioned the website that you can go to find those opportunities, but there are also certain offices on campus that if you're a part of them and you know administrators, they can also update you when more positions become available, like diversity, inclusion, student life. A lot of those offices will have people specifically who will just send out emails when something new becomes available. So even if you miss that sort of first go round, there's still opportunities to get it later on when you apply.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Yeah, I would say just like keep your eye out, probably earlier than later. So like during the summer, I would say like look out for that. But yeah. Okay, we're gonna see if there's any other questions in this chat. If not, I think we'll give it a few more minutes before we end this call, just in respect of time for everyone. But if you have any other questions, just drop them in the chat. Like I said, this is a very low-key conversation, nothing too formal. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Oh, okay. There's one question I kept getting that not a lot of people talk about. It's how do meal plans work? I want to quickly address that because I feel like that's something that's really confusing as well. Like no one really talks about meal plans, honestly, and even at orientation, I was like, I still don't know what meal plans are. So I'll just like talk about it a little, and Eleanor and Ivana, if you have anything else you want to add, please feel free to. So basically, meal plans are interesting. So how they work is like you can pick from like I think like 5 or 6 different plans, and essentially all of those meal plans are like different block plans. So those block plans work in that you get a certain number of swipes into the dining hall, right? I think I'm right about that. Okay, yeah. So like you can either get the unlimited plan or you can get a certain number of swipes. And along with those swipes, there's something called plus swipes where you can like use those plus swipes at certain restaurants on UNC's campus. So I know like an example of this is there's something called like the like block 200 plan. So you would get like 200 swipes into the main dining hall, and then along with those 200 swipes include 25 plus swipes, which you can use to get like combos at restaurants on UNC's campus. And then like those kind of like decrease, so you could do like 200, 160, 150, and then there's like the unlimited plan. There's definitely more to it than I'm telling you, but I don't want to like sit here and give a whole dining plan spiel because I know I don't work for Carolina Dining Services. So I would say like go to their website. I would say is definitely the easiest part, but if I had any advice, don't get the unlimited. You are not going to use as much as you think you will. I promise you, even if you eat every single meal at the dining hall, like the unlimited is just not worth it. And that's just my honest opinion. Like, I'm just going to be honest. Like, it's very expensive to get the unlimited, and you're just better off getting something lower and like having swipes left and like using it for your friends. Like, I don't know. I just feel like the unlimited is just not really necessary, and I made the mistake of getting that my freshman year, and I really regret it. And you know, you live and you learn. But yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Oh,
you go. No, you go.
okay. I want to add one more thing in, and then I'm gonna have to go. But for Chapel Hill in general, Chapel Hill Transit is absolutely free. There's a bunch of different bus lines that you can take. There are buses specifically for campus. So even though campus is really big, the buses come pretty regularly, and they're also completely free. So don't be stressed about like not having a car, because our buses are a great alternative, and you don't have to pay anything to use them. I'm gonna go, but thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Eleanor.
Bye, Ivana. Bye, Shiv.
Bye. Thank you. All right,
Yeah,
Ivana.
I was just
Yeah.
going to quickly add to that point. Eleanor mentioned in the chat, like, do the math when you're looking for meal plans. Best advice ever. When it comes to buying them, you are paying for convenience, and I think that that's something really important to stress. If you think that that's gonna help you and you want something that's easy, you don't want to have to worry about providing for yourself. I don't know about y'all, I can't cook. So I think pay attention to sort of what you're hoping to get out of it, because you are paying for convenience. Plus swipes, it's cheaper to just use your card, like your debit card, rather than using a plus swipe. If you're gonna get a meal plan, go to the big dining hall in the buffet. Don't use plus swipes. Just use your regular card for that.
Yeah,
And
or
that's
there's the
really
opportunity
good advice.
to it's called like flex, where you can buy a plan where they just give you like a amount of money to spend at certain places. Honestly, I found that to be a better alternative to using plus swipe.
Flex is really helpful. Yeah.
All right, so I think that's all for all the questions we have. I think we're gonna go ahead and end the call because it's a little past 2:15, so we just want to respect everyone's time. But thank you all again so much for asking your questions and joining the call. We dropped our emails in the chat, and I'm also gonna be sending a follow-up email to everyone with all of the panelists' emails and just like any other resources that you asked for. So if you feel like you missed something, don't worry, and this call will be or was recorded and will be posted. So thank you all again, and I hope you have a great rest of your semester and hope to see you all around UNC.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.